All right, so we're here with the Chevelle, and we got the car back from the alignment, and everything's good now. So the wheels on this car are obviously, I don't care for them, and they are also the wrong back spacing up front. They're a 3.5 inch back spacing up front, and they're supposed to be a 4.5. The rears fit, but you know, they are a skinnier tire. They're like a 235. So the back spacing is supposed to be a 4.5, which would put the tire in another inch, and then we'd all be fine, okay? But for now, you know, wheels and tires, stupid big purchase now, right? But for now, I think what I'm gonna do is I took the wheels off the Nova there, and I put them on the Chevelle, and it's like a night and day difference. Look at that. Like, wow, I don't even have this car buffed yet. And I really thought 17s were gonna be too small. Now in the camera, they kind of look a little bit small, but in person, because the car is lowered, it's not bad. I thought 17s were gonna be too small, but I think this is gonna work, guys. I think now the tire setup is a 275 4017 with a 17 by 9.5 in the back. It's just a torque thrust off the shelf wheel. It's a so it's a 4.95 backspace is what it comes out to be. And the front is also the same. It's the same wheel. It's a 17 by 9.5, 4.95 backspace. And that wheel, with it being lowered, I haven't done any modifications to anything. And it all fits. I don't have the alignment specs, which I wish I would have, but I will turn the wheel and everything. And right now, I mean, I got over finger length right there. And so that's like 3/4 of an inch. And so I think it doesn't rub on the frame rails or nothing. So kind of excited for this because I absolutely hate those centerline wheels. So I think I'm just gonna rock with these. And then on the Nova, what I did is I just put my drag radials on, and then I never had front runners. So I might just order some front runners and then just rock this Pro Street setup for a while. So that's what I got going on here. Now look at that 275 in the back. That's what's nice about these Chevelles, is they accept a 275 tire, no problem. With the Nova, it doesn't take a 275. You have to mini tub it, especially since that's a leaf spring car, but I got a totally different suspension on it anyways. But look at that 235 to 275 in the rear. So let's finish getting these wheels swapped over, and then I'm gonna do an internet tune, I believe, on this, so stay tuned for that. I also will add that this wheel is a 255 4017. I didn't specify that. And the sidewall isn't terrible. I would not go, should have went with a 245 on this front tire to give it just a little bit more, but because that rear one on the 275 40, like, that's a nice meaty tire, it looks good. So the front one's a little skinny, but it's not that bad. The video quality makes it look a lot skinnier than it actually is. So but yeah, it's also has just a little bit of tip in of the tire, so it's nothing to be overly concerned about on how much that tips in. It's really hard to tell on the, you know, like a 275, it's a nice square tire, where this one has a little bit of stretch to it, just a little bit, which actually probably helps with it to make sure that it doesn't rub too. So, but I didn't buy these for the Chevelle, I bought these for the Nova. So I'm just doing a wheel swap for now. So I took the Chevelle around the block, and I have no rubbing, no nothing. So we're good to go. I'm gonna run this setup, and what I'm gonna do is I actually have another tire here for a spare, a full spare for the Nova. I'm just gonna order another one of these wheels and just run them in the front, so then we can just keep these center lines for a spare. So the suspension is a UMI 1-inch drop for the front and for the rear. Now, I put that suspension in, and I was not thrilled on how it dropped the car. Now, the back, I didn't modify the 1-inch lowering spring on it, but the front, I contacted the company and I was like, hey, it's not lowering it enough. And they said that I didn't have it in the pocket correctly because it's kind of touchy and this and that, and I messed with it. Eventually, they said that I could cut the spring. I think they nonchalantly said that the 1-inch and the 2-inch spring are the same spring. They just cut them to make them a 1-inch to 2-inch drop. So I took off like a quarter of a spring, and then that wasn't enough. So I took off another quarter, which would have been a half, and that wasn't enough. So then I ended up taking off another half a spring, which would be a complete full spring, and all of a sudden the car just whoosh got low, and I was like, oh boy, I think I went too low. So the rake on this car is, I think it's perfect now. It's starting to settle out and everything. So basically it's like a 2-inch drop in the front and a 1-inch drop in the rear, and that's the stance that it is. And it's the factory A-arms, the upper and the lower, and it has a brake disc conversion for the front and the rear. The rear axle is the factory length, and then nothing else done to that. And it's the Blistein shocks all the way around with the UMI lowering springs. And it rides pretty good.